All right, and we're live. Let's maybe wait like a couple minutes, see if anybody actually jumps on, and then we can jump into it. Yeah, a couple
Like
people.
live streaming through Eugene's life right now.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is like the day in the life of Amazon,
yeah,
TikTok.
exactly. We got 30, 40 views, and then 5, 10 people on YouTube. So yeah, for anyone who is like here for the first time, um, we try to do these every once in a while just to catch up on what we're working on, problems we're thinking about, share any news that might be interesting or relevant. And this is my way of also just avoiding having to read all the tweets and really get the highest signal information from both Hamel and Eugene. And maybe we can just do like a quick introduction of all three of us to kick it off for the first one of the year, and then we can just, I don't know. I have some stuff I want to talk about, but I'm also very curious about what Eugene has been up to. So I'm Jason. There's really no host. I'm just the one organizing this thing this week. And most of what I've been doing these past couple of months has just been thinking about retrieval, thinking about RAG, structured outputs, a little bit of investing, and I'm really thinking about what to do for the rest of the year. So yeah, let's jump into maybe Hamel and Eugene.
Okay, I'll go first. I'm Hamel. I do consulting like Jason. I do a lot of work for Answer AI right now. So that's a R&D lab run by Jeremy Howard, Eric Rees. Yeah, that's me.
I'm Eugene. I sell books at the bookstore. So very specifically, I work on recommendation systems and search at Amazon Books. Opinions my own, of course. More recently, I've also been dabbling with generative AI in terms of how it can improve the reader experience. So in this year, I'm thinking a lot more about how to build product that's AI infused but doesn't distract from the reading experience. So that's one of the more recent write-ups I shared about AIreadingclub.com, which is a prototype for me to think this through. And also this year, I think the time is ripe, a little bit more ripe to think about recommendations. They are augmented with LLMs, either using LLMs to weed out irrelevant recommendations or using LLMs to augment cold start. So there's a lot of literature I'm combing through in 2024 last year to try to see where the state of that is there right now and how we can apply it to serve customers better.
So I have one question, Eugene. So you mentioned, this year it's about having Gen AI in the product without distracting it. Like, was there data to suggest that most things were distracting last year?
I think every year we want it to be in the product with it without distracting. So maybe I can share a little bit more context. So I think there's this tweet by Andre Kapati where he was saying that he wants the perfect use case for him is writing, sharing about reading books with an LLM. And then one of the tweets that was a response was this tweet by Patrick Collison. So Patrick Collison was saying that, this is currently right now, it's a pain to do it, but he does it anyway. And the way he does it is that he gets the PDF from somewhere, uploads the PDF to ChatGPT or Claude, and then that's how he has it talk to the PDF. From my perspective, I find it very difficult, right? Because you're asking questions of the PDF, but you don't actually have the PDF in the context. It's really hard for you to understand, where is it coming from? Where is it getting the information from? So that's when the AI is only the AI. It's only chat, and context is a secondary priority. It's just a side loader where it's retrieval. On the other hand, imagine it where the PDF is the main thing. You're scrolling through the PDF, you're highlighting it, you're asking questions, a side pane pops up. Okay, you're done, the side pane pops back up, you focus on the PDF. And that's what my prototype I was doing to try to see, okay, can we build such an experience to try to see this. I'm not a product designer, I'm not a product guy in the first at all, but I was just testing, hey, I think the technical problems are largely solved there. Now it's trying to figure out what the right design is for the customer. Yeah.
Have you guys seen any new research in the past couple of months that has been exciting? I've been kind of on vacation for 2 months now.
So have I, man. I have not, but I've been looking at a lot of the Rexis papers that really use LLMs a lot. But what about you, Hamel?
I'm excited about Modern BERT actually. So like you using that
yes.
for all kinds of things, especially like retrieval and
Mm.
embedding things and things like that. I really like small
So,
models. They're exciting.
so where is modern BERT being used now? Like, could I use it as not only an embedding model, but also doing like query expansion and like query understanding? Or I don't really know the limitations of those models are these days.
That's a good question. Like, I'm still using it. I haven't gotten too far in using it
Mm,
myself. So I haven't. You would have to ask like someone else, like
mm.
Ben, or there's two Bens. There's like Benjamin and Ben. Um, I'm getting started on like a code retrieval thing that I'm going
Mm.
deep on, but I haven't got to the modern BERT part yet.
I
I'm
see.
just
I see.
excited about.
There's been a couple of investors that has just been like, Jason, have you seen this new article that came out? It's great. It's about these guys testing out Devin.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I'm curious if you could like share a little bit more about like that as well, because I have not had time to read it, but I know that like OpenAI is thinking about doing like more code agents, right?
Yeah.
Because they just raised like a Series B.
So the thing is like about Devin is like there's a lot of hype around it, but then I couldn't find like detailed accounts of people using it. Like, hey, I use
Mm,
it for XYZ real tasks like at work, or I tried to use it for some extended period of time. There's definitely a lot of, there's some accounts like dismissing it completely.
mm,
Um, and then there's other accounts, there's plenty of accounts saying, oh, it's amazing, it's going to change the world, software development is going to go away, blah, blah, all that stuff, which it's like, I don't know, it's some kind of different flavor of hype that I haven't seen
yeah.
before. So it kind of, we were like, let's look into it because, like, I don't know, let's just find out for ourselves because we don't know.
Mhm.
So we tried to use it at Answer AI, like
For
seriously
work.
for a month.
Yeah.
And actually, it was like I got interested in because you were using it, Jason.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And it was kind of funny, like watching you use it, because you would use it and you would be like, because you invited me to your Slack,
Yeah.
and so I could kind of watch it, and it was like really entertaining. It looked like fun, kind of, because so I was like, okay, it sounds like it's neat.
Eugene, you have not tried Devin, right?
I have not. I have not.
Okay, okay. Just for some
So
context.
the UX is like really nice. It's like you just chat with it in Slack and it
Slack.
chats back to you. It's like, okay, I'm gonna go do that. And it goes and does a bunch of things and it reports back to you, asks you a question. It's just like fun just to try it. And so yeah, so like I tried it. It worked really good for like the first task I put it through. Maybe it's just dumb luck.
Hmm.
They were like, okay, let's really give it a go. Let's try it on like for a bunch of different things that we need to do. And then kind of it didn't work for most of the things. And then we said, okay, like, let's just write up what we did and share it. Like, what are all the things we tried and what didn't work? And the thing that was kind of disappointing is we couldn't figure out a pattern of what worked and what didn't. Like it
Hmm.
just failed all over the place,
Mm.
and it succeeded in some places, but we weren't like, oh, it succeeded there because of this. And like maybe if you can
Right.
use Devin for like XYZ, but like we couldn't figure that out. Like,
It's like failing at random versus like there's some segment of inputs that are
yeah, it
breaking
wasn't
the
like,
game.
oh, it's like really good for this kind of thing. It's gonna nail it. I can kind of guess maybe what it might be better at. We didn't try everything under the sun, but whatever
Mhm.
is like in our workflow. I will say that Answer AI has a little bit of idiosyncratic tools and workflows and ways of working and
Mhm.
all that stuff. But like, whatever. I'm sure like a lot of people have idiosyncratic things.
Mhm.
So we just wrote that up and shared it, and it
I mean,
got a lot of attention, which was super surprising to me because I thought no, I almost was like I was kind of like lobbying to not publish anything. It's like who cares? Like I thought who cares? Like, but
Right.
whatever.
But
and
but Devin is hypey.
Hmm.
yeah, and you did try it for 20 use cases,
Hmm.
and the success rate was surprisingly, unfortunately low. I guess the question is, with more hand holding, do you think it could do better? I think like you mentioned at the end, right? It's like, oh, a developer using a cursor framework whereby there's maybe more human in the loop interjection on, hey, this is what I want, this is not what I want. It actually works better. Whereas Devin is like mostly hands off the wheel, maybe two hands off the wheel. Do you think that's the issue?
Yeah.
Like, how could we get it to work?
It's hard to see it, like, I don't know, like cursor just feels Pareto optimal. Like it's just really good.
Maybe it's Pareto optimal for people who already know how to code.
Maybe, but like I don't
maybe.
know, like they have like the composer,
Mhm.
Yep.
this is pretty decent.
Yeah.
So I just couldn't see like, okay, I couldn't understand the situation where I thought, okay, I want to use this. Maybe it's there for somebody, but because cursor is there.
Fair.
I guess another thing I'm curious about is like, have you used like the O1 Pro models for coding? Because I have not used it for coding at all, but I use it for a ton of creating worksheets for my lectures. Like, it's definitely paid itself off, but it is not what I had expected to use it for.
A lot of folks have been telling me to use O1 Pro, and I was asking them,
For
okay,
what?
yeah, exactly. What is it
Yeah.
that has been useful for it? And then a lot of times they mention coding. Okay. I mean, yeah, other than coding, where there's deterministic outputs where you can evaluate it, what else have you found useful? One guy said that he's been finding it useful as a career coach, like consulting. Like consulting is like, oh, what do I want in life? Like, here's where I want to see. How do I get there? And your idea of worksheets really reminds me of that, whereby it helps
Yeah.
you build the scaffold for the human mind
Yeah.
to think through.
Yeah, like what I do is I give it like one thing that O1 Pro is very good at. I'll give it like 12 hours of office hours, and I'll say, give me every question answer pair, and for every answer, give me my answer word for word, cleaned up a little bit for grammar. And if you do it for Sonnet, you'll get like 12 questions because it just can't output that much length.
Mm-mm.
For O1, it'll think for like 7 minutes, and then it'll capture like all 68 questions that I had mentioned in 12 hours of office hours.
So what you're saying is that O1 Pro is an amazing ETL engine. It's a fuzzy. Wow. So does it essentially do the work that doc ETL is supposed to do? If you're familiar with doc ETL.
Potentially, right? And the fact that it's 100,000 token output, like I've asked for it to give me a like 40-page, 20-page tiny PDF, like ebook. Like, here's my entire lecture. Make me give me like an ebook that I can make for free for like, my students.
So for coding, there's like a couple of people. There's that guy Matthew McKay. I think I'm pronouncing his name correct.
Yeah.
And then there's another person, and so there's some, like one workflow is like to have O1 create a PRD, and then in a bunch of other design documents and dump those into Cursor as context.
Yep.
Mm.
And then Matthew shows something. I haven't used it yet, but he basically takes an entire code base, dumps it into O1 Pro, like he's trying to do some kind of like major refactor, and then he like starts with, and he has some tool that will take the output of O1 because you can't. I guess the O1 Pro is not API yet. He takes the output and he has like this XML. There's a prompt, and he takes the XML, he parses it and applies it to the code base.
Wow.
And then he uses that as a first starting point, and then like starts using Cursor from there. I haven't tried the second one. I've tried the first one.
What do you think about the first approach? That's the approach I took to build AI Reading Cloud.
Yeah.
Gotta do something right now.
I think like I have met my workflow is so incremental based because of like all the notebook infrastructure stuff at Answer AI that like it just like doesn't, I don't know, like it doesn't work super well. I've tried, it seems like it does help a lot, like if I'm doing things like in the more mainstream way. But even then, like I don't know, like I don't like to one shot too many things at once. It's just me. I need to understand what the code is doing. So I like to build like one piece at a time and like understand like what it does.
That makes sense.
So there's
Yeah,
I
in the
haven't
same
found
way.
it yet. I feel like I'm missing some kind of thing.
Yeah, I think I can comfortably let it write like 700 lines of code that I'll never have to edit again. But if it generates 700 lines of code in a 600,000 line repo, I get very nervous. Right. I guess one way that I've been thinking about it recently is like, what does a good tool look like for the L3 engineer versus the L4 engineer versus the L5 engineer versus the L6 engineer versus the L7 engineer, and thinking about like those all are a different suite of tools. Right. And each of those levels of engineering is also willing to pay a different amount of money for their product. Like an L3 engineer is very willing to pay for Cursor. Whereas like I personally would love a $2,000 like model that would actually work. Right. And if OpenAI said, give us $1,000 of test time compute, we'll give you an ebook based off of like the 30 hours of lectures you've ever given about this topic. It's free. I want to make my money back. But I'm curious, like, what do you think are the different tools that like the L3 engineer needs versus what like the L6 engineer needs? Like they're not the same thing, right?
I'm trying to
Maybe I
remember
can.
what an L1 engineer is like.
I
It's
guess
been a
junior,
really long time.
junior, mid-career, and senior, and maybe
Yeah.
staff or principal.
Yeah.
I guess what I can say is I think the time is. So recently, I've been chatting with a few very senior managers or director
Yeah.
level, and they think, right, and these are engineering folks. They think that the time is ripe for them to go back to become an IC, because the tooling is able to provide them with so much leverage that they can take the design in their head, the customer problem, and very quickly build a prototype and even get maybe 80% of the way there to production. So I think the tooling is very much right. Yes, that could be more. That could be like, spin up my AWS infrastructure, handle all the permissions automatically, build the data pipelines. Building data pipelines is still really hard for LLMs. Figure out how to build data pipelines, track the data pipelines, everything. But I think I'm very grateful for what we have now. I think it really allows you to run very fast. So for example, like the AI reading club thing, right? The prototype. Like people ask me, like people in my how long did it take to build this? Oh, it just took me like 2 to 3 hours a day for like 5 days a week. So it's a 10-day thing. It's a 2-work-day thing. And it's like, how do you do it? It's like, it's just Next.js and Cursor. I think people can run really fast right now with the tools. What do you think, Hamel? What are the gaps? Devin is still a gap.
Like I feel like the way you use it should be different. Maybe like it's hard to say, like, because I try to act like a junior engineer sometimes myself, because like I don't know everything, and so like I like to use it for learning a lot. Like, hey, explain this to me. What are different ways that you can implement this? What are the pros and cons of that? What are some alternatives? Whatever. Like I get the way I talk to AI, I talk to it like a beginner, and then sometimes talk to it like I already know it, whatever. So I don't know. I think a large part of it is like using it in the right way, differently. I just think, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Cursor is really good though. It's like I feel like it just spans so much breadth. Like you can use it at like a micro level. You can, use Composer or more like agent, whatever. I don't know.
So what's your answer, Jason? Like, why did you get started thinking about this?
No, just the fact that these tools are all different, and I feel like so much of all of what I've been doing now is just okay, what is a product I want to offer? What is the price point of that offer? And if it went like higher or lower, what more can I offer? Right. And I'm kind of seeing what O1 Pro has to offer. And now, okay, like what does a $2,000 O1 look like? Like what does a $2,000 O3 look like? If they had O1 plus a cloud project and they told me that was $500 a month, like I feel like I would be happy to pay it. because I would just have a single document of all of my like 30 hours of lectures, and just create me a 12 email newsletter sequence, create for me a first draft of the ebook, create me the landing page for the ebook. Like I can actually build a product, and like there's a world where if it's a powerful enough version of an agent, like I would give it a percentage of revenue, because that's what I'm doing right now with like the people I'm working with, right? And I'm actually just more and more wishing there were more expensive products that got me closer to getting an actual result,
I see.
right? And it's like I pay $6,000 for some work. I pay $40,000 for some work, right?
Yeah, there's a joke. Yeah,
$3,000 for someone to make me PowerPoint slides.
there's like somewhere I heard that like Sam Altman says like when they reach AGI, they're gonna make pay the favor back to their investors by just asking the AGI to make them money.
Yeah.
So it sounds like almost similar. It's like, hey, you want the model to help you make money directly. Then we're happy to pay as much as accordingly, like really high amounts.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. Changing topics a little bit. This is actually the reason I called all of you guys here, which is I'm having a difficult time with a technical problem. I think for the beginning of like last year, most of what I had been thinking about in terms of function calling and tool calling was just the precision and recall of how we can put tools into the context, and then the precision and recall of what tools are being used, right? And at that point, we were getting like 80-90%. It's doing pretty good. Well, we're finally getting to a place now where I think with something like O1 or enough few shotting, we're often picking the right tool. And now I think we've earned the ability to start thinking about evaluating like the tool arguments, right? Especially like very complex arguments. Outside of LLM as a judge, I don't really know how to think about that on a holistic perspective, right? I can always write custom scoring functions or custom comparison functions. But I am curious, like what you guys have been thinking about, if at all, right? Like evaluating function calling agents, but thinking about tools.
I can go first. I have not. I've mostly been using fairly basic retrieval. So I'm curious, what kind of arguments are you thinking about? And are there like clearly good arguments and correct arguments and wrong arguments, or is it like there are some arguments that are better than others?
Is it like SQL query as an argument?
No, it's like actually calling different APIs, right? Maybe the API has like 5 or 6 different arguments and parameters. Some are optional. Some of them is a date range. Some of them is like start and end time, but the end time may or may not be null. It's been really hard to think about how to evaluate any of that, right?
So if a human looked at it, if like one of your engineers who actually is familiar with the API looked at it, they would know what is the correct answer.
Probably, right? But the difference could be a subjective one of I asked for like what's going on this week. Did it select a Friday? Did it select 7 days? Right?
I
I don't
see.
know. Right? Like I know errors could be like, you might be selecting inclusive versus exclusive of a single day, and that's a property of the API. Right? Like one argument could be if you're going to evaluate the tool call arguments, you may as well be evaluating the entire multi-hop loop, because you actually want to evaluate not only the arguments, but the return arguments, the return results, maybe the full conversation, who knows? But I think we're getting to a point where we know the tool we need to call, and now the question is like, do you do the next step, or do you just do the entire conversation as a single test? Right. And I just don't have an answer. I personally just don't have a strong opinion on some of these things.
Yeah, so like for the function call, the date thing you say is funny because I have like something I was working on. I'm working on like a multifamily real estate agent. I really hate to say the word agent, but whatever, just just use it. And it does things like it responds to potential residents by like giving them like booking dates and whatever. And it was always getting the dates wrong because it has to call a function and like you can ask like, I mean, I can just show you some examples. Because it's like I have some fake data that let me see. Does it allow me to share my screen? Yeah.
We'll put it up.
Okay, so this is an example. This is brain trust. So this is like kind of realistic. It's like you are a leasing team member, blah blah blah. You're engaged with the customer to book tours. You are capable of handling various data inputs, blah blah. Follow these specific rules, whatever, all kinds of stuff, right? And then like basically I went through the data and did like a bunch of, for this particular error, we're like, okay, it's always getting dates wrong. And then so what I did is like I outlined all of the different failures, like kinds of genres of failures that would be getting wrong, and generated a bunch of synthetic data that would trigger those errors. And then basically like, okay, here, like I have like, okay, looking for a 3-bedroom unit, blah, blah, blah. And I know like, okay, there's a ground truth somewhere. I don't know where the hell it is. Oh yeah. Right. And so like, I know what the outcome is supposed to be. So I guess it's not really the arguments. It is an argument to some degree. Like it is like, you have to give the right input here. But essentially like, yeah, we just have like a bunch of test cases and then like whatever. So that's like these more deterministic things. For the more like ambiguous stuff, like where there's not a single right answer, then that's like kind of similar to the honeycomb stuff. I mean, it's just like a SQL query, so it's like a little bit more loose. But I've been using LLM as judge, but I go through that process of like writing critiques and aligning it.
It's like almost like if you're gonna go from a precision recall evaluation to something more complex, you may as well just jump all the way to the end.
Yeah.
It was like the right recommendation, right? Like it shouldn't be, are the arguments correct? Have a suite of tests, and then it's like, okay, once you call the function, have a suite of tests. It's like, no. At that point, you're just testing the A to B.
Yeah, you have to put in the work to like do those critiques or like have an LLM judge. You just have to know like whether you can trust the LLM judge. That's the only problem. So you have to do that work to say like, hey, like we have this judge. It agrees with me 90% of the time or whatever it is. And like, okay, that's good. We trust it enough. And you can refresh that. But
Yeah, I wonder if you can simplify at an argument level, come up with criteria on what is right or wrong or good or bad. And then those are the criteria that you use your LLM judge for.
Yeah, because I think in worlds where there's like 5 functions, I just write custom scores for each one, right? And it's mostly just like watching for changes, like a snapshot test, right? It's okay, well, you ran it with 01, these are the arguments. How similar are 4.0 arguments to the 01 arguments, right? But like I've been working with companies where we have like 90 extensions. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Right? It's like
yeah,
90 extensions and each one has like 20 commands. Now it becomes very tricky.
I think in that case,
sorry, go on.
this is very similar to what I'm facing, whereby I'm not working on extensions, but use cases. And then like maybe this year we're going to go an order of magnitude more use cases and an order of magnitude more marketplaces. The only way I've come to the conclusion that only way to scale that is maybe an LLM evaluator. And then how we try to organize it is come up with criteria that will apply to most of these use cases. And then we work based on those criteria.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's funny. Like I feel like only this year have the people who took last year's RAI course been able to then do this like segmentation and investment in the actual like specialization of certain tasks. Like
it takes
even that
time.
was like last year was still like too early, basically.
Yeah.
I'm working a lot on teaching people how to look at data So like last year, I think I just like yelled into the abyss, like, look at data. You just have to look at it. But I realized at some point, like, people don't know what I'm saying. Like, they don't understand. They like nod their head, like, yeah, look at data. But then they don't really understand.
You have an answer yet, Hamel, to that?
Yeah.
And I have
So
another question for you all after this. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the answer is like, yeah, there is a way to look at data. There's like a whole process you should go through that's so ingrained in all of you that it's like it's like breathing, so you don't know that
Yeah,
there's
it's hard to tell you how to start to breathe. First,
Yeah.
do this thing on your nose and then go into your lungs.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so I had to really like reflect on it deeply and like watch a lot of people fail with looking at data to understand, like, okay, this is how you don't know how to look at data.
Mhm.
But I think that's the main problem, like doing data analysis of logs, basically how to do data analysis. And I'm not talking
Mhm.
about statistics or any like fancy, just
EDA, right?
counting, how to count stuff and how to look at stuff that you're counting and where to look and kind of whatever.
How to even know if your data smells bad, if your conclusion
Mhm.
is even bad, or if your SQL join is wrong.
I mean,
Things
Albert
like that.
asked like a really solid question, which is like, can you discuss what bad data looks like?
It's not so much bad data, it's a bad process of looking at data because you have to clean your data. But it's like, okay, like systematically look at your data and start like enriching it with your own labels or like apply facets. There's this term, like you can say apply dimensions, apply facets, whatever. But it's like,
Right.
segment that data according to like whatever is interesting to your business. So features or personas or whatever it might be, and start like doing some basic data analysis on that.
Mhm.
People don't know how to do that, and it's not about like bad data. Bad data is like data you can't even look at because it doesn't contain the information you need. So, or data that is just wrong, like
Mhm.
you know. But it's more like the driver that's bad usually, because it's your
Yeah.
job to make the data good. Yeah.
I can share a very silly example. Every time I do a data analysis, maybe it's just a habit. I always print out the number of rows left in my data frame. One thing I found is that every time I'm reviewing someone else's methodology, either they do a join that causes the data frame number of rows to explode because it's not on a unique key, or they do a join and then they drop like 80% of the data unintendedly.
Right.
And therefore, it's like either they duplicated a small segment of data or they lost out a huge segment of data. I think
Mhm.
something like that even is, unless you've made that mistake often enough, that it feels painful that you would even bother to pay attention to that.
Yeah. I recently asked people about pivot tables
Hmm.
for this reason. Do both of you know about pivot tables?
I
Don't use
I
them
always have to
often. Know
Google
what
how to
they
use
are.
it. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So like
I
I
only
have
know
a question.
stack
I
and
have a question
unstack
actually
in
about
GitHub.
this. So like I have a theory, like, okay, so for me, the only way I really feel comfortable with data is if I have like a physical connection to it. Like I feel like I can, it's weird because data is not physical. It's an abstract concept. In the way that it feels physical, it's like very low latency exploration of it. Like, oh, can like turn it this way, look at this detail, and
Yep.
there's no friction at all. Like while I do that, and like pivot tables allow me to like just change my mind really fast without like much faster than code. Like, oh, I want to see this here in this way. I want to filter this real fast or whatever. It just takes like 2 or 3 seconds longer than writing code, or it's like writing code is 2 or 3 seconds longer, and it just adds up. And then like little things like pivot tables, you can aggregate your data into like a grid, and then you can like double click on a value, and then it explodes and shows you what's underneath that. And then you can go and fiddle with it, and you can just keep exploring. And I don't know, this like intuitive feeling of the data, I find it to be important for
It
myself
is.
to like understand, to give me comfort, like I know what's in there and kind of get it. But then
Mhm.
like without that, Okay, maybe there's other things like pivot tables. There's like Looker. There's other Tableau has some pivot. There's other. It's not unique to Excel, but I don't know. What do you all use to have that
Pandas.
feeling? You get
I
that
use
with Pandas,
pandas.
though?
Either
Okay.
data frames or Spark data frames. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you have so much data. You have to use Spark, but yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of what I end up doing is pandas in a Jupyter notebook, stack and unstack is kind of the pivot table equivalent. 10 years ago,
I,
10 years ago,
I
not 10 years ago, maybe like 6 years ago, I would use like dplyr.
It doesn't
wow.
frustrate you
ggplot.
though. Like you want to like switch this thing to be over here, and then you need to like change the code.
So I'll tell you why that's valuable. The thing is,
Okay.
every time I do an operation, it's just a separate cell, and it's a documentation log, so I don't lose anything. And the amazing thing about working in Jupyter Notebook is visualization is amazing. I
True.
always find more in the visuals than in a table.
Yeah.
And I do a lot of visualization. I'm a heavy visualization guy.
There's another thing though, but sometimes like even there's like ways to do visualization, like even with the pivot table concept, like dragging axes over here and there or whatever.
Yeah.
And I just feel frustrated sometimes. Like it's like I'm not holding the paintbrush. I'm just like I'm interacting through
Fair.
this abstract medium, and I can't like play. If I want to create an artifact, I love code. Nothing beats it. But it's like just to play with it, I don't feel.
It's more
Feels
intuitive
frustrating.
with pivot tables. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say, like, I think here a lot of it is people's inability to actually do like multi-dimensional data visualization. Like, what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to just create like a grid of plots, and we'll see like, oh, most of the lines go in the same direction, and then one of them is not.
Mhm.
Okay, I need to go investigate that subsection of the data. Let me explore this a little bit more. Oh, like let's see what kind of variables do I have. Okay, let's visualize these variables. Oh, again, it's like it's all flat. Then like one subsegment is like very low. What's going on there? So it's a bit of the same thing of being familiar with the data, but I guess for you, it's like you're kind of moving things around. I just want to be shown like 55 plots and visually figure out what is the like discontinuity in my data set. I wish I had an example, but
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
a
I
little
like
bit
that too.
tricky.
There's like that auto EDA stuff that's like just shows you a bunch of shit, like
Yeah.
plots, like histogram, every variable, blah blah, all that data science stuff.
It's really hard. It generates a lot, and unless you know what you're looking for, it's not so straightforward.
It's just
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't describe. It's like once I start looking at data, I have these like hunches. Like, oh, I bet there's something fishy right there.
Exactly. How
And
do you
then
teach that? That's the thing.
Mm.
it's not
It's hard.
magic.
It's like you won't know it until you actually look at it, and then you slice and dice it, and then you find different things that.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
it
I
is
mean,
what it is sometimes.
a lot of similar vein. I had a question for Jason and Hamel, and I think you all face this in your consulting work, and working in startups with technical folks.
Mm.
A lot of times there's the business problem, right? Maybe the business problem is I don't know, MRR or retention rate, and then there's how, and sometimes people are like, okay, there's this business problem, and sometimes okay, we build some system to solve this business problem, but very often what I'm seeing with a lot of folks I'm talking to is that there's a gap between defining the business problem and the business metric and defining either the engineering metric or the machine learning objective that the system should optimize. Do you see this as well, or like do you always have before building a system you always have very clear engineering metric or machine learning optimization metric that you always know, and then you focus on that?
The people, I wish that people came to me with such a metric. It would
Yeah,
be
so
amazing.
someone has to define. That's the thing. You are always the one that is defining it. But how do you teach teams to define that? It's almost like teaching teams how to define the eval metric, right?
It's
But
really
you're not
like
evaluating a system.
okay. So first of all, I
Evaluating a
think
business.
people are really far away from being able to define their metric. I am spending most of my time teaching people how to look at data because people can't count right now. I mean, I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
inflammatory. I'm just saying people can't count their data and like look at it. So then you need to do that before you the metrics. Once you start to understand, like, okay, these are my problems, this is where it's failing, the metrics kind of become obvious.
Emerge. Yeah.
But
But it, like
yeah.
that's an eval metric, right? How do you? And then the other thing is, how do you map the eval metric to the machine learning optimization metric? So it's like, are you just reducing loss, or is it validation loss, or perplexity? I mean, Jeremy Howard has a great post on
Yeah,
this.
I guess I'll maybe add my thing of just like, hey guys, whatever we come up with, it's not going to be a good number to use in 6 months. So really, we just have to make sure that whatever we're measuring, it correlates with the thing that is probably a little bit harder to measure,
And how do
right?
you make sure it correlates well? Like,
Well, if you can't outthink the problem, you just have to start acting, right? You just have to start doing experiments and going, okay, we ran 3 experiments. Our leading metric changed. Did our lagging metric change? Right? Sometimes the answer is like, oh shit, you gotta do an A/B test or something. I hope it doesn't have to be like that aggressive. But I feel like if last year was like too vibes based, now like everyone wants to like measure everything and they're just like, oh, like thinking too much.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that's come up in my office hours as well.
I think the pendulum has swung a little bit. Yeah, too much.
So it happened in my office hours quite often, where it's like, oh, I read their blog post. I I annotated like 5,000 rows, and I have like these 25 metrics, and I did like 2,000 critiques, and I have all this stuff, and
What do I do?
I'm analyzing like 25 components. I'm like, no, just stop. Like stop.
Yeah.
Hamel, you caused this, Hamel. You
So yeah, you could. It's like gone too. I agree. It's gone a little bit too far. I think because it's like lossy. Like, how do you? It's like a nuance to it.
exactly.
Once
Well,
I
it's
say
just
like,
a
look at
confidence
this.
thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
If you're not confident about what you're doing, you end up doing too much.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Um, I wish that it was like more clarity on that. Like, on to be completely transparent. Like, most people that I work with are just trying to build AI because they think it will help in some nebulous way, but they don't really have a clear. I mean, it's not like it's hard to articulate some clear business metric per se.
I, I I think they know how to build it. I think they know how to Kaggle it, but they don't know how to define what is the Kaggle optimization metric, what is the eval, what is the hidden test split, what is the business problem. I think that part is missing because we just don't have a Kaggle for that, and or maybe it's also because it's fuzzy. Yeah.
Amal, do you want to try to answer this question?
Yeah.
I
So like when
actually
you have
have my whole
millions of
course on this,
records, how
but
do you look at your data? So like this is interesting. Like I always get this question, and it's like we've been solving this in machine learning for decades, because of the same issue there. And it's really like take a sample of your data, just like 150. Just start with 10. I mean, it doesn't like don't kill yourself and start looking at data. You don't need to look at all of it. You'll
Yep.
understand. You'll get once you look at like 100, you'll be a way smarter and you'll know what to do. Um, you'll know like, oh, there's errors here, and like, oh, maybe I want to look at more data like XYZ because that's really fishy. But you kind of have to trust that will happen. People are like, oh, that seems like what's going to happen after I look at 100. Trust me, look at 100. Like,
Yeah, and stratified sampling helps a lot. Like, do you want to sample by customer persona, new customers, regular customers, or is it like by your use case? I think that helps a lot for you to know good stratified sampling.
yeah. I'll add this a little bit, which is, the real question is like, do you want to sample at random?
not completely, no. You want to start there maybe to get an intuition what the hell is going on, but then you have to have some hypothesis for
Yep.
sure. Yeah.
Right.
And I
So-
also think you want to sample by engagement. What does this mean? It means that, okay, let's say you have a feature that gets 90% of traffic, and then there's a feature that gets 10% of traffic. Like, you probably want to take care of the feature that gets 90% traffic more.
Yeah, and that ties back into Jason's comment of like aligning with your business. Like if you have some business thing that you're aligning towards, it will drive that engagement thing. You're like, okay, I don't have time to worry about this like
This small thing.
1% thing.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's the whole thing with the course is it's just like you segment your input data, you count the percentage of traffic for each segment, You look at the probability you can do that segment well, and then you look at how much money you would make if you did that perfectly. And then N times P times dollars is how you prioritize your improvements.
So Jason, that's a good question. I have a question for you here. Sometimes not everything can be reduced down to money. So let me give you an example. So
Sure.
let's say, assuming you're on an e-commerce website, right? Of course, the e-commerce,
Yeah.
the main thing is conversions or clicks. But sometimes, let's say we want to introduce a new product line. It's like the explore exploit thing. So how do you think about measuring the benefit of showing products to customers that they may not buy? There may be an informational intent, like the goal is to inform you of this new product line, or the goal is something else. Yeah.
Well, I mean, that is just, I mean, I would go down like the angle of really what we're saying is P is not a point estimate, P is the distribution, right?
Yeah.
And, maybe we should be ordering it by, bottom confidence interval or something.
I see. Okay. But then
Right.
eventually the measurement is based on dollars, right? So how would you try to dollarify, try to make something into a dollar value, like informational needs or diversification needs, or
Well, it's like if we go down the multi-arm bandit route, you can still like dollarify your reward, but still have very reasonable,
I see. So you convert everything to a dollar.
exploit.
Yep.
Right. The issue is like, do you use like is P, the number of successes by the number of failures, or is P some like better estimate for the lower bound of the probability? And so as you sample more, I think like there's a lot of like bandit literature that you can just borrow from heuristically.
That makes sense. I see. Okay, so essentially we try to put a dollar value on other things, or basically put whatever, have a common metric and try to bring everything to the same quantity. Gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I would love to. Sometimes to do that, you have to do like interviews with people who use your product.
Yeah.
But I think if someone comes back to me, so like, well, that's hard. I'm like, why? Can you not get the interview, or does no one use your product?
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay.
In which case, like, yeah, like let's really figure out what you're trying to do. I'm gonna share your screen real quick.
Yeah, I have a
Is that
question. So like, okay, I really love this feature on Amazon. It's like, okay, how what kind of, or like, okay, how long do the batteries last? And like, I always get you really useful information from this. It's actually really, yeah, like it's great. But then I do wonder when I use it, I'm like, I wonder what's going on. Like, I'm not sure like this increases or decreases my likelihood to buy. It just makes me happier that it's there. So like, how is this person working on this feature? How are they like, how can they possibly tie this to money, even though I like it?
A/B test.
Okay, so tell me more. Like,
So you can imagine. So
but is it based on, if you A/B test, like, based on what though? Like, because
personal opinions on it, not speaking on behalf of Amazon. You can imagine, right? Anytime you have a new feature, you could have a control and a treatment. And the treatment would be showing this feature, and the control would be not showing this feature.
but
And then
how's the signal come? Because I'm happy, but I'm not expressing, like, there's no way that I'm giving that back.
maybe are you buying? Okay, so
you're
are
definitely
you
giving it back.
I am.
so
Like,
there's a few things here, and I think you're getting at what the question I had, the struggle I have. So if you're happy and you're buying this exact product in the next 24 hours or 48 hours, we can sort of attribute that you interacted with this, you purchase it. Now there's another kind of thing, which is the customer long-term value. Like, oh, are you using this feature again? Or how happy are you? How informational this is? Now that is really hard to measure and quantify.
and to
Right.
be clear, many times I don't buy products because of this, but I'm
And-
very
and
happy
you know-
that it exists.
And to be clear, that is a I think from a product standpoint, that's actually valuable, because you stop customers from buying things that they would actually be upset and eventually return.
Mhm.
But that is you're right. It's extremely tricky to measure this. Very, very difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. What you really need here is like the founders or to have a culture of like long-term holdouts.
Yeah.
All right, say more.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I
It's
know.
like the real. I think the question is like, what is? It's not even like average order. Like, does this impact average order value? Maybe not. But does it impact like lifetime total value of the customer? Probably. Does it impact churn? Maybe. Right. But then what is churn defined by? Like not renewing Prime?
I don't know.
That's like
Like,
a
I'm not
3-year
going
long
to
experiment, I
change. It
think.
didn't really change my. Like, I'm going to have Prime no matter what. Basically, monopoly as far as I'm concerned in my neighborhood.
So
So,
again,
like,
you're now that's a different problem. You're right. It's extremely hard, and now the problem becomes attribution. Like whether did Hamel churn or not churn? Is it because of this feature or the other feature or something else? As the long term hold up gets longer term, Hamel's going to be exposed to more features. So how do you attribute it? I think there's this amazing quote in reinforcement learning that the only problem in reinforcement learning is reward attribution. How do you attribute the reward to the right action taken?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a hard problem. So Hamel, how do you like this feature so far?
this is excellent. Yeah, I really like. I use it all the time. I use it almost every single time that I buy something and it's there. I'm like, this is great. And I just ask a whole bunch of questions, like, oh, like, what is it?
I think this is a perfect example of a UX where the AI is not the main thing, but the AI serves a lot of help.
So
I mean,
go on.
my hypothesis is that I have come across a lot of people who have shared feedback that they love this. My hypothesis is that this is great because it helps people save time. I mean, you don't want to command F you don't want to go through all the reviews or the product description. You just want to ask this, and it helps people save time. So yeah, therefore the main thing is still the shopping experience. I want to buy my stuff and get out, and the more you help me save time, the better. Whereas the other, so you can imagine that there could be a metric, right, which is session length. How long daily average minutes, for example, just making something up. As a metric like that could be wrong because yes, people are spending more time on your platform, but that's not what you want. You maybe want that on TikTok, where your ad platform, but when people just want to buy their stuff and get out, that may not be the right metric. I don't know.
But
I'm
who's
just
to say? Who's to say that that search thing is making it longer? It could be making it shorter.
Yeah, it could be making it shorter. Exactly. So
Right.
so something like lower time spent on a website, people think, oh, it means that your website is crap. People are leaving, but no, you could be more efficient, right? It's just like
that is my
search.
genuine question. Like, I wish I could talk to the person at Amazon working on this specific feature and be like, what's like your metric that you were evaluated by? Like, how do you, like, it's just very interesting to me, you know?
It is, and those are the really, really hard questions. Those are really hard questions that just don't learn anywhere.
I would like to believe that they're not, you know, they're not like tied to. So in this case, I would believe it if they're not tied to any business metric and they're just trying to make sure like this output is good, like it's factual and it's good.
You can think of those as guardrail metrics. There'll be guardrail metrics, and then there'll be success metrics. Guardrail metrics is like, okay, can't have that many defects, and then success metrics would be, okay, we drove 5% incremental conversion or whatever, or 5%
Yeah, the success
incremental
metrics
click.
I would really want to know. I'm like,
yeah,
okay, that seems very noisy and I don't know. Like,
yeah.
I wonder if this can be used to like personalize landing pages. Like maybe like 2 years from now, if I've been using Rufus a lot, or is it called Rufus? I forget.
Yeah, it's called Rufus. Yeah.
You know, maybe what's happening is like I don't even need to see this anymore. I just when I go to a product, it knows what kind of questions I'll ask, and it'll just show me the answers to the most 3 important questions for you. You know.
Wow, we need a lot of data on the customer level then.
Like, why would I have to ask?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, but like I'm sure like every watch,
does
like, one of the
I don't
questions
know,
like, is it waterproof? You know, like
Yeah.
at some point, I would rather just tell the watchmaker. People really care if this watch is waterproof. Change the title of your product. Just say waterproof watch. You don't need to answer the question anymore. But we've made you make the product better. You know.
Potentially. There's like some fun, like I guess I've trained, there's a lot of user training. Like I've trained myself to like look at Amazon, like, okay, so remote control car. Like first I look for, like everyone does this, like, okay, reviews, like what are the ones with the best reviews? Then within those, like between those, like which one should I get?
Right.
Whatever.
But what I'm saying is, like, imagine so many people ask about like battery life. I would just eventually just tell the remote control car company to be like, no, just put 6 hours battery life, rechargeable on the label.
It is interesting that, okay, because I was searching within books. Maybe that's the problem. It's like, why is it returning books?
Yeah, that's a
Oh, you know what I
filter.
will say? Amazon is like overfitting on the back button now.
On the back button? What do you mean?
Oh,
I don't know if this is like a me thing, but if I click something, then press back immediately, my recommendations change. Maybe it's just me then? Oh, this is for
I
sponsored
I
post.
believe it. I mean,
For sponsored post, yeah. It was really weird.
I see. Maybe it's an ad thing whereby they don't want to overcharge someone for impressions. Or
Yeah.
yeah, this
Like I searched
grid thing is really nice. Like,
Mhm.
often use this grid.
Right.
It's like,
No battery life. You know what I mean?
yeah, you can imagine, there'll be some kind of analysis going on in the back end whereby, okay, what are the most common queries on this? Or
Mhm.
imagine like product. Let's say a lot of people look for, I don't know, Jason Liu mug. Just making it up. Look at your data mug, and maybe there's a gap in our catalog. In
Someone
the
just
catalog.
left.
I think he has another call. Yeah.
Mm.
So do I as well. I actually don't know if he's gonna come back, but
I think Hamel will come back because it looks like his laptop died or something very sudden. But if you gotta go, we can.
yeah, I gotta go in 1 minute.
Alright.
But yeah, great catching up. When are you traveling again, Jason?
I'm in SF for a while. I think I'm gonna do the course in SF and just like wake up at
Till when?
7 a.m. My apartment in New York is kind of being delayed, so
I'll be in SF in March. It will be a while, but
March is a
anyway,
really late. If you come
No.
in February,
I'm traveling in
I've
February.
made a lot of
December.
friends from Twitter this time around.
Fantastic.
The house party scene is popping.
When I go to SF, I'm just so tired from all the social. I just do my own thing.
All right. Well, it sounds like Eugene's got to go, so
Yeah, I gotta go at 3. I'll see you guys. Take care.
all right.
yeah.
Bye.
Yeah, man. Nice.
Well, I'll probably jump off in a bit too. I've been doing 7 a.m. meetings. Very, very sleepy.
All right, cool. No problem.
What else have you been thinking about, man? How's the consulting going? Have you been changing your mind?
Yeah, I'm trying to slow it down a lot, spend more time with my kids a lot ever since talking to our friend Rishi.
Mhm.
And yeah, I just want to like not go so hard this year.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
still
if
feel
you got
tired from
customers in the
last year.
summer, let me know. I
Yeah,
think I'm on
for
the
sure.
same boat of like, man, I think you really start valuing your time more and more every day. Yeah, I'm talking to 20-year-olds, like you'll never understand what I'm saying until you're like 30 or 40 or 50. But man, you are rich. It is so easy to make money. Like you just like I am turning down money. But like I have 3 weekends in San Francisco.
That's
left.
great, man. No, I mean, like, yeah, you have to figure out what makes sense, you know.
Exactly.
So, for me, my kids are not young forever or whatnot.
Exactly.
But it's
All right.
definitely worth it.
Let us end the stream. Maybe we can keep chatting for a little bit, but I
Yeah.
think we'll just cut it off for now. And yeah, next time we'll do more of like a Q&A session. But yeah, let's see that. Awesome. Take care, man.
All right.
End stream.